Soon I will be the Emperor's closest confidant.
Imperial Officer, Fabulous Cape, Space Revolver, Darth Vader R2-D2. Oh, don't mind me, I'm just going down my checklist of awesome. Before we break down the Krennic gameplay I captured, let's take a look at what's really important. Emotes.
I will destroy this rebellion. No one will deny me my rightful place.
Saw Gerrera, director Orson Krennic. That's where my hype is for Rogue One. And yes, I do realize that Darth Vader's in the movie. Darth Vader is in the movie! I am very excited, but come on! Director Krennic, Saw Gerrera, that's where the hype is. That is pure hype. Speaking of pure hype, I want to thank DICE for flying me out to their LA office to check out this DLC before release. That was really special for me, guys. Thank you. And thank you for putting Darth R2-D2 as Director Krennic's ability. This thing is adorable. Look at it. It doesn't even look evil, it just looks mischievous. He's a nice little buddy companion for Krennic. He's basically a mobile shield generator who's very useful, and when you see that, when I'm not doing damage, it's him doing damage with Diax's gas. But we'll get on to Krennic's abilities in a second. First, I want to talk about his Space Revolver. This thing is legendary. It's the DT-29, and it's the first primary weapon in Battlefront to use actually munitions, and it's not just a blaster that overheats. You have to reload this thing. It doesn't overheat, it isn't affected by disruption, and it has really high damage. But it's mixing up the game. It's changing the game because you can't just time your shots and space out the overheating. No. You have to time your shots and save your shots and use them wisely because you only have 6 before you have to reload, and reloading can be very dangerous in the heat of battle. Krennic also has, like Leia, like Palpatine, troopers that surround him. He has bodyguards, and of course, those are the legendary Death Troopers. Now, the cool thing is, these guys are actually accurate to canon and lore, because in the game, they stand a good bit taller than any other soldier, which is accurate. And they wield DLT 19s. They have thermal imploders, smart rockets, and cooldown. Apparently, the thermal imploders and smart rockets have the same stats as the weapon pickups, so they are really, really powerful, but still not OP. In fact, they felt just a little bit squishy. In any case, bodyguards now get cooldown reductions when they're close to their respective heroes. Death Troopers will not get a cooldown reduction from Palpatine, for example, which I think makes complete sense. Moving on to Director Orson Krennic's abilities, I'm using one of his abilities called Armor Breaker, and it's a one-hit kill for regular soldiers at full health, but it's mainly meant to be extremely effective against heroes. Its main purpose is to bring down armor, but it does deal a whopping amount of damage. However, you can only take one shot before you have to reload, and it doesn't seem to be on a time constraint, so you can use it as a secondary mode of fire. Krennic's other ability, which you just saw me utilize, is the large Imperial symbol on the ground. That's called Wrath of the Empire, and it greatly increases the health of those standing in his immediate vicinity. And I mean immediate vicinity, maybe even the span of that shield dome that R2 is spitting out. I mean, Darth R2 is spitting out. But it's to encourage team play, it's to encourage bodyguards to actually act as bodyguards, and I think this is absolutely fantastic. Battlefront, as many of you well know, is a completely different game now than it was at launch. They've constantly been evolving it, constantly improving it, and it's really starting to show. It's fantastic what they've been able to do. I was really annoyed when I'd be playing as Palpatine and I wouldn't have my bodyguards be my bodyguards. They'd just be, like souped up soldiers running around doing whatever they please, but now they're going to be forced to actually play their role, and I think that's fantastic. Along with the fact that they're introducing unique types of weapons, for instance, Krennic's DT-29, which brings a whole other school of thought, a whole other realm of strategy in terms of utilizing guns. This DT-29 for me is kind of like the DL-44 back at launch of Battlefront, which was a little OP at the time, but we get that same extremely high damage and really satisfying firepower without the OP-ness because we only have 6 shots before we have to reload. And it really is a joy to use. I feel like McCree with a cape. Traits have been added for all heroes, including the vanilla heroes. For instance, Vader's armor trait builds the more enemies are around him, not with kills or hero damage, and I believe that Krennic's trait builds armor the more friendlies are around him, which works really well with his Death Troopers and his character. but the details are kind of foggy, so I'm not 100% sure if that's the case. I couldn't seem to get it past trait level 1. I couldn't see anyone else getting it past trait level 1 at the event. But that armor really saved my butt. Even 10 armor points made a huge difference in my survival. Along with Darth R2, of course. Speaking of Krennic, they don't actually have Ben Mendelsohn voicing Krennic. They tried to get the actor and actress that played director Orson Krennic and Jyn Erso, but due to scheduling difficulties, they unfortunately couldn't. I feel like he gets kind of close. The guy that they hired to voice Krennic gets kind of close sometimes. He's not the closest, but it's good enough. Most people aren't even going to notice. The face, I feel like the pores could be a little more pronounced, it could be a little harsher, a little more defined, and the shadows could be a little darker on his face, and I think that those small tweaks alone would make his face very accurate, but how it is now, it's a little soft. It's not quite as accurate as it could be, but I'm really nitpicking here. Before I can really give my final judgment on director Orson Krennic or Jyn Erso, I would really just need to play around with them a bit, and we didn't have too much time to play with them at the capture events, but from the 2 instances where I was able to get Orson, because, you know, I wanted to give everyone else a shot, everyone else time to capture the heroes themselves. From what I played of both the heroes, I think that they're a lot of fun. I wouldn't necessarily say that one is completely better than the other, because in all honesty, they are fulfilling different roles. They do have different purposes to one another, and it's nice to have another villain that isn't a bounty hunter. It's nice to have another villain that plays that support role. And Krennic plays it very well. A lot of people thought that how Krennic plays, was going to be Grand Moff Tarkin as a hero in the Death Star DLC. Obviously, that didn't even come close to happening, but it's really awesome to have an Imperial officer like this. Regardless, I hope you've enjoyed our talk of director Orson Krennic and his abilities. I am assuming he's going to be changed. He's going to be balanced and patched a little bit depending on what the community says, how they react to him upon the release of this DLC. So, as far as in-depth details, I would say that's definitely going to be very fluid. We are actually looking at footage of an earlier build of the game. This isn't the final retail build of Rogue One Scarif, so we'll see what it's like upon release. Regardless, I've got some more absolutely gorgeous, stunning, HUD-less 4K 60 FPS shots of all the maps of Rogue One. Of course, I'm also going to be breaking down my girl Jyn Erso, who's a badass in Rogue One, and she's also a badass in the DLC, so be sure to check that out. I'm going to have the gameplay with, obviously, a breakdown just like this. It's not going to be a no commentary type thing. And finally, a very special video that I've been making for a while now. Ultra Hardcore Battlefield 1, where I play Hardcore Battlefield 1 with no HUD at 4K 60 FPS. It's insane. It was a lot of fun. If you want to see me be a masochist, check that out. Regardless, thank you for checking out director Orson Krennic with me, and thank you to DICE for letting me check out director Orson Krennic in the first place. Until next time, fam, may the Force be with you, always.